I don't see a problem necessarily with how Phoenix legislates the racetrack, but I would like to point to that early restart where Joey Logano was assessed that very, very, very ticky-tack penalty for obviously going below the apron like inches before the finish line. And here's my thing. We have black and white rules for stuff like this where I don't feel like Joey Logano gained 20 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds of an advantage over William Byron by being inches below the line before the start finish line. He maybe gained like a couple hundredths of a second by taking a slightly shorter line around the racetrack compared to William Byron on the outside. But the penalty for that tiny, minute, almost worthless infraction was a pass-through penalty. And I think that's ridiculous. Like, I get why we have a restart violation penalty, and like later in a race, if a driver is already violated it once, I totally understand levying a pass-through penalty. But like, I feel like this is where the shades of gray in the NASCAR rulebook need to be placed, where instead of like a right hook, which I think should have been a black and white rule, and I mentioned that in our pre-race discussion this week, I think that this is the kind of rule where like a shade of gray could be painted in, because on like lap 15, making a guy serve a pass through for being off by like 2 inches that didn't even really give him like a visible advantage over his competition just seems really overt and really silly. I think this could have been a situation where if the rules were written a bit more gray, I couldn't come up with a better word, but if there could have been a bit more of a gray area here, you could have been like 22. This is a formal warning from the officials. Hey, you went under the yellow line before you got to the finish line, so clean it up next time. And like, I think doing that once for each driver for when they commit the penalty would be fine. And then if they repeat the infraction, then it's a pass through. Like you've flagrantly bypassed the warning and done it again. But on lap 15, to give a guy a pass through penalty for not gaining any reasonable advantage just seems painfully stupid, to be honest with you. I hate to be that blunt about it, but like when you really look at the penalty for what the infraction was, and when you consider that, you know, for a separate thing last year, a restart violation should have been called and didn't, it just seems over excessive. So yeah, that, I guess that's where I stand on this. That track limits at Phoenix, like that's kind of the feature of the track. I don't really mind it, but when you're penalizing guys for not really gaining an advantage, it just seems really silly.